Our daughter's car was parked in front of her apartment in St. Louis, Missouri, when it was hit by a tornado. The first tornado to hit St. Louis since the 1950s, and it dropped a tree right on her car. Was declared a total loss, and this happened on Friday, right before Memorial Day. My wife and I are both combat veterans, so to call us up on Friday after basically Friday, right about noon before Memorial Day, and tell us you've got 7 days to find a new car until your rental car is removed, and that's it. They wouldn't listen to reason. They wouldn't behave in an ethical manner. They wouldn't just simply defer it until that following Tuesday so that I'd have a good week in order to try to find a rental car. That was where the problem started. Went downhill from there when we received their valuation. And the way that a claim works with State Farm is that they send you a market analysis from this scumbag third-party company that they used called CCC1. Most of the insurance industry uses them now. And what they do is they lowball the value of your vehicle. They offer you comparables that aren't comparable at all to justify it. They apply all sorts of mathematical gymnastics. They do all sorts of mathematical gymnastics in order to try to equate the vehicle that was lost to stuff on the market that isn't at all similar to it in order to reduce the value that they're going to pay out for the totaled vehicle. It's incredibly unethical. So in our case, when I did my own independent research, I set the criteria for my search to the lost vehicle had 63,247 miles on it. So I searched between 60 and 70,000 miles. To a reasonable person, and I'm thinking that whoever is watching this video is likely a reasonable person, that's a good search parameter. If you lost a vehicle with 63,000 miles on it, and you're trying to determine what it was worth, there's no value whatsoever in considering vehicles with 30,000 miles on them or 150,000 miles on them. There's also no value in considering vehicles from when you're in Missouri, from California, Arizona, and way far away. That's exactly what these people do. That's exactly what CCC1 and State Farm do, is they take your vehicle and they try to compare it to vehicles that are not at all the same vehicle, not even the same trim line. It's all in an effort to rip off the insured. It's all in an effort to pay the very bottom dollar that they can get away with, and that's not okay. It's not okay with me at all. There is not one thing that my daughter could have done differently that would have resulted in a different outcome. She parked that vehicle in front of the address that is on the policy where the vehicle's parked overnight. A tree fell on it. There's no fault whatsoever on our end. It's a natural disaster. A tornado came through town. It demolished something like 20 square blocks. There are houses without roofs. There are structures knocked down. There are piles and piles of cars that have been destroyed. And it's not the right time for the insurance company to take advantage of the policyholder. Now, we're about $3,000 apart in terms of valuation. The very well correlated set of comparables that I provided yields an average of about $17,450. And State Farm is absolutely set on the notion that it's worth no more than $14,700. And then the deductible comes off of that and all of this. But they're basing this on absolutely garbage comparables. And then this is also important. I asked them to tell me what is the calculation to adjust mileage, because the accident vehicle had 63,247 on it. You're not going to find a vehicle that has 63,247 miles on it. So what number do they use? How's the math work? What's the value of a mile, 1,000 miles? How do you do this? How do I look at the comparables I've developed and actually turn them into pricing that matches the model you're using? They told me that's proprietary information and they refuse to share their calculations with me. They're dramatically undervaluing the vehicle. They're using comparables that are not at all comparable, and they're refusing to share the math so that I can understand how to adjust my comparables to match their model. It actually gets worse. The comparables that I provided were from three sources. I pulled Car Gurus, Carvana, and CarMax. Carvana and CarMax are number one and number two in the US reselling market. They sell more used vehicles than between those two, they sell more used vehicles than pretty much every other used car dealer in the United States combined. Want to guess what State Farm says about them? They don't know the market and they're not comparables. They want to throw out my comparables from the two largest used car sellers in the United States. The person watching this video, I believe, will be a reasonable person. I believe will say, no way is that right. That is not reasonable behavior on the part of the insurance company. Top to bottom, front to back, they're terrible. When you call them up and you get someone on the phone and you want to discuss the claim, they won't listen to logic. They won't listen to reason. It's almost as if they're reading from a script. And when you say you want to talk to a member of management, they're reading from the same exact script. I've had 4 or 5 people at State Farm tell me the exact same thing. And I'm not talking about it adds up to the same thing. I'm talking about using the same words and language. They're very clearly reading from a script in order to avoid having to behave like reasonable, decent people and have a conversation that looks like a negotiation to reach a fair settlement for both sides. Instead, what they do is they say, there's an appraisal clause, you can go hire an appraiser, we'll hire an appraiser, the two of them will put their heads together, they'll hire a third appraiser, but guess what, policyholder? You're stuck paying for half of those 3 people's work. All because they refuse to negotiate in a reasonable, honest, business-like manner, and they refuse to consider comparables that are far more comparable to the lost vehicle than anything that they've provided. I kid you not, they sent me comparables for different trim levels. An S model is not equivalent to the SV model. They're completely different equipment packages. They won't disclose whether or not some of these low-priced vehicles have an accident history, multiple owners, or were used by rental car fleets. There's truly no way for me to look at what they've provided and say, yes, I can draw a line between this number that they're giving for this vehicle and what we had. They've denied me that. And they've stonewalled me. And I filed complaints with the Better Business Bureau. They're rated F on the Better Business Bureau. They won't answer the Better Business Bureau anymore. They know that they are that crooked and that wrong that they won't even respond to a consumer advocacy group trying to help the consumers, trying to help their policyholders. My best advice to anyone thinking about writing a policy with State Farm is don't walk away, run away. They are a terrible company. You may have a wonderful agent. I certainly do. I love my State Farm agent. It pains me that she's losing our business. But the way that their claims department behaves, there's no way that I'm going to continue to use them for our insurance. They're really, really bad actors. I think they need to use my comparables. They're far better correlated. They're from 2 of the largest used car resellers in the United States. It's absolutely garbage to claim that they're not comparables and that they won't consider vehicles from the 2 largest resellers in the United States. Carvana alone moves 250,000 used cars a year. I would suggest they have a better understanding of the market and actual cash value than this nonsense that they're applying. So again, 63,000 miles. How can they possibly consider a vehicle with about 150,000 miles to be comparable? They are 2 completely different values. They refuse to accept mine. I want them to accept mine. I want them to pay me what I consider to be a reasonable number. That number is $17,000. That's supported by the research that I provided. And if anything, I'm being a lot more reasonable than they are. There are shipping fees on those vehicles. Each one of them has a shipping fee. I included 0 shipping fees in my calculations. All but 2 out of this set, it runs for pages, all but 2 out of the set of comparables I provided have more miles than the lost vehicle. I'm not trying to adjust the mileage. I'm not trying to get more money out of that. I think that what they need to do is behave like a reasonable, ethical company and use my comparables. They're far more relevant than the nonsense that they continue to push.